Hi, I'm RavenWynd.
This is Rain.
You're listening to the Feather and Bone Podcast, two witches talking about everything witchy and nothing at all. I think I forgot to do the opening on the last podcast, like the full...
I don't remember.
Don't either.
And it was only like an hour and a half ago.
I know. We've had pizza. So we're entering into that like after pizza phase where you're just like turning into Al Bundy.
Yep.
Like you just want to like sit down.
The blood sugar spike.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this podcast, we're going to talk about.
I thought that was my book for a second.
No, ma'am.
And I was like, "What are you doing to my book?"
Yeah. Okay. So I'm actually going to cover something from a book. It's Buckland's Book of Spirit Communications.
Pretty cool book, guys.
Yeah, it's a really cool book. We got them on Amazon, and big red book. You know, kind of in comparison to his big blue book. You know, he got really or whoever published it got really creative with the cover. But the reason I brought my book instead of using her book is
anal retentive.
She really is. Like you can barely crack them open. Like you have to open them just enough to see what's written on the pages. And
oh, now come on!
You can't crack the spine or.
Hey, you have to admit the books that I was selling at Beltane looked pristine.
Yeah, they did. And it wasn't because you hadn't used them.
No, I'd read them.
Like they were just.
Yeah.
Mine are very lived in, I guess. Like my books show that they.
She beats the hell out of them.
I do. I really do. And the whole reason, like I brought mine is because I fold. This is a paperback. Which means as I'm reading it, I am going to fold the cover back behind itself.
Oh, God.
And that bothers her. And I knew if I did that with her book, that the friendship would be over. We wouldn't be.
I actually had a book that something happened to it, and I was so upset about it. You traded with me because you knew I couldn't handle having.
I remember it was in that smelly apartment.
It had like that musty, damp smell to it.
Yeah,
and you had to trade with me because I could not handle.
Yeah, I was like, I don't care. Like, it's not going to stay musty forever, you know. So yeah, I traded with you because, yeah. Anyway. So out of this book, we're going to go over, because it kind of teaches about spirit communication. So it goes like lessons instead of chapters. Instead of saying lesson or chapter, whatever, it's lesson. So we're going to go over lesson 3 and 4. Lesson 3 is the history of spiritualism. Part 1, the early years, and then we'll do part 2 when we get to it. But it doesn't start off by telling you like what spiritualism is, so I thought I would start with that. Spiritualism is a system of belief or religious practice based on communication with the spirits of the dead, especially through mediums. Spirits of the dead exist and have both the ability and the inclination to communicate with the living. The afterlife or the spirit world is seen by spiritualists not as a static place, but as one in which spirits continue to evolve. So there's the definition. So we're going to, and this is actually starting like, I was really surprised when I read these two lessons that like the whole like seances and stuff like it was huge in America. And like, I don't understand how it went from being like something so accepted to something so frowned upon. Like, I don't know where that switch happened.
Different topic, but in that book, love the book. I always have a hard time with anything I've ever read about spirit communication says that when you start your meditation, because no matter what you read, guys, it's going to take you through a meditation first.
Yeah.
It always says to sit straight up in a chair with your feet on the floor.
I can't do that.
I can't either.
I can't do that.
So that's, I'm not sure what the thought process is behind that. I'm sure there's a reason. It just doesn't work for me. So guys, if you do get this book, don't feel like you have to follow that to a T.
Whatever works for you as far as like meditation, that's what you need to do when they ask you to meditate.
Like the Offspring, for example. What? When she needs to clear her mind, like a form of meditation for her is running back and forth listening to loud music.
Mm-hmm.
And
Thank you for telling the whole world that.
And she feels a million times better after she does it.
Yeah. Like, when I meditate, I need to either be laying in bed or, like, reclined in my recliner.
I do it laying in bed, because if I close my eyes sitting up to meditate, I get really nauseous.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
One time I accidentally fell asleep because I was trying to, when I first started, I was, like, setting up to meditate like they tell you to do.
Yeah.
Like, sit on the floor, Indian style, you know.
Oh, God.
Meditate, whatever.
But that hurt.
I fell asleep and, like, toppled over and hit my head on an end table.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
Oh, God.
That's why, like, and most of the time if I meditate, I am going to fall asleep.
Me too.
So.
I fall asleep meditating all the time.
Yeah. So I need to be in a bed or in my recliner
Mm-hmm.
so that I don't hurt myself or a small animal.
I don't, because I can't. I'm moving.
So anyway, so it starts off talking about an incident that happened in Hydesville. So we'll kind of go into that. I'm going to skip the kind of introductory paragraph here. The modern spiritualist movement was more firmly founded, if you like, in 1848 in the state of New York as the result of publicly afforded... Oh, what? Oh, I'm sitting here trying to read, and I hear, I see you, miming.
My arms waving.
And, mouthing words, and I'm like, just fucking talk to her. I don't understand. You caused me to completely lose my train of thought.
I was trying not to interrupt and ended up interrupting.
In a big way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You made it bigger than it should have been, Mom.
Exactly.
All right, guys.
Anyway.
I'm not going to stop.
But anyway, there was a homestead. It was the Fox family lived there in Hydesville, Wayne County, New York. Okay. Ever since moving into the house on December 11th, 1847, the Fox family had been plagued with strange sounds echoing through the wooden cottage. They heard knockings and rappings, the origin of which neither John Fox nor his wife Margaret was able to trace. They tried all of the obvious possibilities, such as loose shutters, window sashes, frequently getting up in the middle of the night.
What's a window sash?
I was assuming it would be something hanging on the inside. I mean, I don't know what, but I don't know.
I'm guessing it was being one of those old movies or something. I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm confused.
Yeah.
I am too.
I'm just confused myself.
But they would frequently get up in the middle of the night and go search through the house with candles to try to figure out where this noise is coming from. On the night of Friday, March 31st, they and their two daughters had just retired to bed when the noises once again started up. In particular, what sounded like someone or something rapping sharply on wood. And they actually have a statement, that the wife, Margaret Fox, had penned in her journal. She said, "It was early when we went to bed on this night, hardly dark. I had been so broken of rest that I was almost sick. I had just lain down. It commenced as usual. I knew it from all the other noises I had ever heard before. The children who slept in the other bed in the room heard the rapping and tried to make similar sounds by snapping their fingers. My youngest child, Kathy, said, 'Mr. Splitfoot, do as I do.'" Now, I don't know why they called him Mr. Splitfoot. I don't know. It doesn't indicate why they named the spirit Mr. Splitfoot. But Mr. Splitfoot, do as I do, clapping her hands. The sound instantly followed her with the same number of raps. When she stopped, the sound ceased for a short time. Then Margarita said in sport, "No, just do as I do. Count 1, 2, 3, 4, striking her hand against the other at the same time. And the raps came as before. She was afraid to repeat them. I then thought I could put a test that no one in the place could answer. I asked the noise to rap my different children's ages successively. Instantly, each one of my children's ages was given correctly, pausing between them sufficiently long to individualize them and until the 7th, at which point a longer pause was made. And then 3 more empathic raps were given, corresponding to the age of the little one that died, which was my youngest child.
Aww.
I then asked, is this a human being that answers my question so correctly? There was no rap. I asked, is it a spirit? If it is, make 2 raps. 2 sounds were given as soon as the request was made. So the foxes, so that was her accounting, of when they kind of realized like this was something that they could communicate with. The foxes went on with their questions and slowly learned that the spirit was a 31-year-old man, a peddler who had been murdered in the house. Mrs. Fox called, will you continue to rap if I call in my neighbors that they may hear you too? The raps were affirmative. She called in her neighbors, Miss Redfield, and this is Miss Redfield's testimony on what she found when she went in. Miss Redfield, I think this is the woman wrote this about Miss Redfield. Miss Redfield is a very candid woman. The girls were sitting up in bed, clinging to each other and trembling in terror. Miss Redfield came immediately. This was about 7:30, thinking that she would have a laugh at the children. But when she saw them pale with fright and nearly speechless, she was amazed and believed there was something more serious than she had supposed. I asked a few questions for her, and she was answered as before. He told her age exactly. She then called her husband, and the same questions were asked and answered. So it talks about how the foxes kind of went on. They called in other neighbors. They called in the Delusers, the Hydes, and the Jewels, and several others. On first looking at the phenomenon, it would seem to be a typical poltergeist activity. There was young children in the house. Margarita was 7, and Kathy, or Kate as she sometimes is called, was 10 years of age. With children of that age, it's not uncommon for there to be spontaneous physical activity brought about by raw energy, for want of a better word. Children kind of throw off a lot of, energy that ghosts or spirits are attracted to, poltergeist. But the fox episode differs from normal poltergeist activity in that the noises responded intelligently to questions.
They drank the worm.
Yes. I love that. I love poltergeist. I really do.
I just want to say, this might impress you. I know this story.
You know the story?
Yes.
Have you read the book yet? Like this
Probably
part?
why I know the story.
Okay. I was wondering, that's what I was wondering, because I know that you haven't finished the whole book.
What book have you not read?
This one.
Oh.
Buckland's.
I might want to go see what's going on in there. I hear growling and strange cat noises.
Yeah. But the fox episode differs from normal poltergeist activity in that the noises responded intelligently to questions. Indeed, they acknowledged being a spirit. Poltergeist activity is completely unpredictable and uncontrollable, so there's a very real difference between what is being accounted at the fox home and then what a poltergeist would be. Take a sip of it before you spill it.
A smiley face appeared
in your foam.
Yes.
It's Jesus.
I don't know.
It's Jesus.
Well, he appears on toast and shit.
I was just getting ready to say, he only appears on toast. And sometimes a tortilla.
He only appears to impregnated women.
Oh.
That was God. Anyway. It's a little known fact that the house had a prior history of strange noises. The tenants previous to the foxes were a Michael and Hannah Weekman, who vacated the premise because of the noises. Before the Weekmans, there was a couple named Bell. With the crowd of neighbors in the house that Friday night, the spirit was thoroughly tested with questions of all sorts. All were answered to the satisfaction of the questionnaires. The spirit also gave all the details of his murder, which was done with a butcher knife, and in order to steal his money.
That's pretty rough. Margaret
Fox and the 2 girls left for the night, leaving the house overflowing with people, and still the raping the rapping continued. The raping continued.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm going to take a drink on that one. The raping continued. What did the girls call him? Mr. What?
I don't know, Mr. Bean.
Mr. Splitfoot.
Mm.
Mr. Splitfoot likes to rape. Anyway. That was not correct. The next evening, Saturday, it was said that as many as 300 people gathered to witness the rapping. The spirit claimed that its body had been buried 10 feet below the surface of the ground. Immediate excavations turned up hair and bones pronounced by medical experts to be human. But it wasn't until 56 years later that the whole skeleton was discovered. According to a report in the Boston Journal of November 23rd, 1904, parts of a basement wall collapsed and revealed an entire human skeleton together with the peddler's tin box. The peddler's name was Charles B. Rosna. So the spirit was like, hey, I'm buried here. Now, he did say it was like, because like what they got from the rapping was that he was buried 10 feet under the ground. And a basement wall collapsed, and that's when they discovered it. Mm-hmm. So whoever buried him would have dug on the outside of the house. So when the basement wall collapsed, I mean, he could have been 10 feet under.
Yeah.
If you think about like a typical, room is 8 feet in, whatever. So I mean, I don't know. Like that's a lot of coincidences, to not believe it. Earlier, a maid named, Lucretia, no, Lucretia.
Yeah, it's Lucretia.
Lucretia Pulver, who had worked for the Bells when they lived in the house, testified that she remembered a peddler once stopping there. She was sent off for the night, and when she returned the next morning, she was told the peddler had left. In her statement, she said that both she and a friend, Ariella Losi, had subsequently heard strange noises in the house during the night, but the Bells were never charged with the murder of the peddler. So,
I've never murdered a peddler.
I've never murdered anybody.
I did see a movie once. I wish I could remember what it was to make you watch it. This guy, he was a door-to-door salesman. He was out in the middle of nowhere. He knocks on this door. And these people had this really hideous, disgusting daughter. So they kidnapped him and tied him to a bed. And it showed her, she's like, "Do you like me?"
Jesus Christ.
And he's like, "Yes, I like you." Is that door closed?
Her door?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's closed.
Okay. So he's like, "Yes, I like you." Because he was afraid he was going to get killed or some shit. He's tied to a bed with this creepy, messed up inbred girl on top of him.
Yeah.
She's like, "Well, if you like me, show me." And he had to force himself to get like excited. And she's like sitting on him and everything, doing all this stuff to him. I wish I could. If anybody remembers that movie, please let us know what it is so I can make her watch it.
Yeah, I don't know what it is.
Boomer, I love you, but now is not the time.
Well, he's like, it's 4:30.
Go.
And I would like to be... Do you see him?
Like his feelings were hurt.
Yeah. I don't know. I've never heard of that movie. So they're saying that that what happened in the Fox home with him asking questions, that was kind of like the birth of spiritualism. And they're actually saying that it was predicted. On that same March 31st, 1848, a man who became known as the Poughkeepsie Seer wrote in his journal, "About daylight this morning, a warm breathing passed over my face, and I heard a voice, tender and strong, saying, 'Brother, the good work has begun. Behold, a living demonstration is born.' I was left wondering what could be meant by such a message." So they're saying that he predicted what happened in the Fox home.
Huh.
Okay. They're saying that, obviously that referred to the Hydesville rappings. Andrew Jackson Davis was born in 1826 and grew up with little schooling. In his first 16 years, he only read one book. I don't know if that means like he only ever read one book, or it took him 16 years to read the book. Like I don't.
Or he read the same book over and over.
Yeah,
again.
like I don't know, but
Maybe he only had one book.
In his first 16 years of life, though, he only read one book. Yet by the time he was 20, he was to write what Sir Arthur Conan Doyle has called one of the most profound and original books of philosophy ever produced. Now, of course, Sir Arthur. I can get to Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, of course, is the guy who wrote Sherlock Holmes.
Guys, ignore the cat sounds. The kitten is torturing the adult cats. Now the dog's going to regulate and break it up. It's not as bad as it sounds.
Yeah. Because it mentions he mentions Sir Arthur Conan Doyle quite a few times through this chapter. So I was like, well, I'm gonna, because I knew he wrote Sherlock, but I was like, what does he have to do with spiritualism?
Yes.
So I was like, well, I'm gonna look that up. He become very interested in like esoteric stuff toward the later part. Did I say esoteric instead of esoteric? As soon as it come out of my mouth, I knew I said it wrong.
My face.
Esoteric.
That's fantastic.
Esoteric. No. Esoteric.
That's going to be my new code word
for
when I'm getting busy.
Oh, I'm getting esoteric.
Yes.
Anyway, he got very interested and involved in it in the later part of his life, and so that's why they kind of mention him a lot throughout this, because he actually wrote about it a lot.
Sorry, you lost me for a second. I looked over and I saw Johnny Depp on TV, and
you got to pause when it's Johnny Depp.
my brain shut down for a moment.
But at the age of 12, Davis started to hear voices giving him advice. On this advice, he convinced his father to leave their native Blooming Grove on the Hudson River, New York, and move to, and I'm probably saying this wrong, is it Poughkeepsie?
I don't know.
It's also in New York. His father was a weaver, then later became a shoemaker. A year or so later, Davis began seeing things. At his mother's death, he saw a beautiful house in a wonderful land of brightness, and knew that it was where his mother had gone. A traveling showman introduced Davis to hypnotism. It was found that while in a trance, the boy had tremendous clairvoyant powers, so much so that a local tailor named Livingston quit his profession to work full-time with Davis, diagnosing disease. Davis said that the human body became transparent to his spirit eyes, which actually seemed to work from the position of the third eye. Each organ then stood out clearly and with radiance that was only dimmed by disease. So they're saying, like, Davis, once he was in the trance and he would look upon you, he would be able to see nothing but radiance, but if something was dimmed, then he knew that part of the body was diseased.
Huh.
Yeah. Davis was also able to diagnose at a distance, using his astral body soaring away over the land to the person whose body he needed to view. So that they're saying he could also do that.
That's cool.
Yeah, by astral projecting.
There's this guy, I've probably mentioned it before on one of the podcasts. He's called The Medical Medium.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been dying to get one of his books. Well, Hay House just last week was having an audiobook sale. I got his book for $5.
Oh, cool.
So now I have The Medical Medium book. And I'm stoked.
You love Hay House.
I do.
Yeah, they have sales on, like, their cards and...
I even have the Hay House radio app on my phone where I can listen to them talk.
And I think it was funny because you're like, I don't listen to podcasts. I'm like, yes, you do. What do you think Hay House is?
I listen to Hay House Guys, I have never listened to our podcasts except for maybe once or twice when I was in RavenWynd's car with her and I had no choice and she started playing them back. But other than that, I've never listened to them.
Well, because I found that, like, it's good, because I'll play them back. I mean, one, especially when we do this kind of thing where we record a couple in a day, just to remind myself what all we talked about.
Yeah.
But I found it's good just to start from the beginning and go through them, like, on my drive to work, because we have talked about so much, and we've touched on so many things, And there's even been instances where we're like, oh, we'll cover that in another podcast. And, like, we never do.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, I forgot that we said we would do it, you know. So I go back and listen to them. But
yeah, you'll call me up laughing your ass off at something we've said. And I'm like, we said that? And you're like, oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It happened.
Anyway. One day in 1844, Davis suddenly left
New York.
that town in New York that I'm not sure I'm saying right. And in a state of semi-trance, wandered 40 miles away into the Catskill Mountains. He later claimed that while there, he met and talked with the spirits of Claudius Galen, a 2nd century Greek physician, and Emanuel Swedenborg. Swedenborg was a brilliant 18th century Swedish seer. He was the first to explain that death means no change, that the spirit world is a counterpart of the physical world.
Huh.
Mm-hmm.
Did he walk 40 miles?
Yes.
Oh, hell no.
He wandered 40 miles. In 1845, in his 19th year, Davis felt the need to write a book. He broke his partnership with Livingston and teamed up with a Dr. Lyon from Bridgeport. What are we looking at?
I'm just making sure it's recording.
It is up here. See where the numbers are.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, he teamed up with Dr. Lyon from Bridgeport, a hypnotist, for this work. Lyon gave up his practice and took the young man to New York, where a Reverend William Fishbow, also gave up his work to act as secretary and take the dictation. Take the dictation that Davis gave while in trance. In November 1845, Davis began to dictate his great work, The Principles of Nature, Her Divine Revelations, and A Voice to Mankind. That was his book. The dictation lasted for 15 months.
Well, you're struggling.
I am so struggling right now. I don't even know what the problem is.
I do. Too much Philly cheesesteak pizza.
Yeah, that will do it. Dr. George Bush, a professor of Hebrew at the University of New York, was present at many of the trance utterings. And he actually wrote this about what he...
I'd like to have my udders tranced.
I haven't had anything tranced in so long. Anyway.
You'd like to be esoteric.
So, yeah. In anything at this point. Anyway. Dr. George Bush, professor of Hebrew, had this to say about witnessing Andrew Jackson Davis during one of his trances.
Yes.
I can solemnly affirm that I have heard Davis correctly quote the Hebrew language in his lectures and display a knowledge of geology that would have been astonishing in a person of his age, even if he had devoted years to study. He has discussed with the most signal ability the profoundest questions of historical and biblical archaeology, shut up, of mythology, of the origin and affinity of language, and the process of civilization among the different nations of the globe, which would do honor to any scholar of the age, even if in reaching them he had the advantage of access to all of the libraries of Christendom. Indeed, if he had acquired all of the information he gives forth in these lectures, not in the 2 years since he left the shoemaker's bench, but in his whole life, with the most studious study, no prodigy of intellect of which the world has ever heard would be for a moment compared with him, yet not a single volume or page he has ever read. So basically that was a long-winded way, because we know we've talked about this before, like doctors like to
yeah,
just be fucking, they're like, we spend a lot of money on this education, we're going to use big words. Basically what he was saying is like that the knowledge that he had, like he had, like 2 years ago, he'd been a shoemaker.
Yeah.
And he's saying stuff like, this was a professor of Hebrew. And he's like, I've spent my life studying, and like, he knows more and understands more than I do, basically, is what he was saying. So the doctor was pretty impressed. By the time he was 21, Davis no longer needed a hypnotist, being able to put himself into a light trance. Later still, his writing was purely inspirational. He attracted the attention of numerous famous personalities, Edgar Allan Poe among them, and he became a prolific author. His psychic development continued. One time he sat beside a dying woman and observed in every detail her spirit's departure from the body, detailing it in his book, The Great Harmonia.
The Great Harmonia, you say?
Mm-hmm. Much of Davis's work reflected Swedenborg's earlier thoughts, but as Sir Arthur Conan Doyle said, this is a quote from the guy that wrote Sherlock Holmes.
Yes.
They went one step further, having added just that knowledge of spirit power that Swedenborg may have attained after his death. Is it not a feasible hypothesis that the power that controlled Davis was actually Swedenborg? But whether Davis stood alone or whether he was the reflection of one greater than himself, the fact remains that he was a miracle man who left his mark deep upon spiritualism. So he was saying that, like, he was wondering, because remember how it said that he had went and, like, wandered into the Catskills?
Yeah.
And he talked to that Swedenborg guy, whatever his name was. So the author of Sherlock was like, I suspect that he may actually be channeling Swedenborg himself.
Shut up, Fez.
And he was saying, but, whether that's the case or not, like, still, his contributions to spiritualism in itself can't be overlooked.
Right.
Whatever happened. She's carrying the entire pizza back to her room.
Yes.
We've got holes in the kitchen.
Did you open your bag of chips?
No.
We both look at her with that look like,
Wait,
really?
Yeah, she walks away quickly.
Guys, my child is tall.
Not open.
Okay.
My child is tall and slender, and she eats like a cow.
Thank you.
She eats ungodly amounts of food, and
Nothing happens.
Nothing happens. My husband eats whatever he wants.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing happens. My son,
Yeah.
skinny.
You can smell a cake and gain 5 pounds.
Yeah, it's really not
Yeah.
fair what's happening here.
So anyway, now, and we'll say this: it was a small pizza, like it was like one of the small, 10-inch pizzas or some shit.
Yeah,
like it's a small pizza.
But earlier she had a bacon, egg, and cheese biscuit.
Yeah.
A large fry, a double bacon cheeseburger.
Yeah.
So she just eats like a moose, man.
Yeah. So now we'll move on to the Fox sisters. The Fox family had been, this is the same people we talked about before.
Yeah, the sisters.
Yeah, in the house. So I guess this is them growing up. Or they've grown up. The Fox family had been greatly disturbed by the events at the house. Margaret Fox's hair turned white within a week of the affair. The 2 children were sent away. Katie to stay with her brother David in Auburn, and Margarita to stay with her sister Leah in Rochester, but the raps continued in the house even after they had left. A strange factor was now to appear. Not only did the raps continue at the house, but they also followed the girls to their new homes. In Rochester, Leah, a music teacher, was suddenly exposed to violent disturbances. The phenomenon reverberated, not reverberated, there's not even a B in that word. The phenomenon reverted to poltergeist-like outburst, with Margarita and Leah the targets of pinpricks and of flying blocks of wood. Leah penned in her journal, pins would be stuck into various parts of our persons. Mother's cap would be removed from her head, her comb jerked out of her hair, and every conceivable thing done to annoy us.
It's like having children.
Yep. Ghost children. It took a while for them, and this right here doesn't make...
Who is that?
It's Butters and Spaz. Spaz is spazzing on Butters.
Spaz is weird. You've heard her since she walked in.
Yeah.
She's laying there all by herself just growling for no reason. And then she won't stop meowing.
It's because she's waiting for Butters to fuck with her. Like, she knows it's coming.
You think that's what it is?
Yeah. Anyway. This part here, I didn't understand it when I first read it, and I still understand it now. So we have these girls who left their home because of the rapping, that happened. Like, it fucked them up, right?
Yeah.
But then the book says it took a while for them to remember that they had been able to converse with the spirit in their other house through asking for raps and answer to questions. Like, why would it take you a while to remember? Like, hey,
you
remember
and I
that,
would never forget that.
Remember that one time we were talking to a ghost? Like, I don't know. But anyway, they started again to ask questions, and once again they got answers. And they got the most important message of all. Now, this was what they had recorded, was a message from the other side. Dear friends, you must proclaim this truth to the world. This is the dawning of a new era. You must not try to conceal it any longer. When you do your duty, God will protect you and the good spirits will watch over you.
Because Jesus.
But supposedly that was the message that the spirits had for them.
Yeah.
From that moment, the messages started to pour in. Like they were talking to spirits left and right. On November 14th, 1849, a group of people met at something hall in Rochester. It's like Corinthian Hall in Rochester. And a panel was formed to investigate the girls. The panel determined that there was no fraud involved in what was produced. Many present were not satisfied with this report, however, and demanded that a second committee be formed. This was done, and the second group reached a similar conclusion. They stated that when the girls were standing on pillows with a handkerchief tied around the bottom of their dresses, tight to the ankles, we all heard rapping on the wall and floor distinctively. So it sounds like what they did is they had the girls stand on a pillow so they, because they were big dresses back then, you may not be able to see their feet.
Mm-hmm.
So they had them stand on a pillow so they couldn't, rap on the floor with their toe. And then they tied their dress around their ankles so that they could see the feet and then maybe possibly see like their legs moving because the dress is so, it was kind of bound tight. As an interest in the phenomenon spread, so it was found that other people were able to act as channels or mediums for the spirits. Leah's ability developed, and she found herself so much in demand that she had to give up her music teaching and become the first professional medium. So, Leah, and her last name was Fish. She was married to the Fox girl's brother. Fox got the fish.
Fox fish? Or, wait.
Because, okay, so Fox.
So she'd be Fish Fox.
Yeah. Leah Fish Fox.
All right.
But she became the first professional medium.
Huh.
Like ever.
Like in the U.S.?
Well, yeah, U.S. Yeah. The sisters started a tour, going to Albany in May of 1850 and then on to Troy. In June, they were in New York. There, Horace Greenlee, editor of the New York Tribune, investigated them. He was joined by Fenimore Cooper, George Bancroft, the poets Willis and Bryant, and others. Greenlee reported in his newspaper, "We devoted what time we could spare from our duties out of 3 days to this subject, and it would be the basest cowardice not to say that we are convinced beyond a doubt of their perfect integrity and good faith in the premises. Whatever may be the origin or cause of the rappings, the ladies in whose presence they occur do not make them. We tested this thoroughly and to our entire satisfaction." So here you have, the New York Tribune saying, like, we investigated this for 3 days.
Yeah.
And there's no evidence that they're the ones that's causing the rapping to happen.
Yeah.
The early rappings gave way to other phenomena.
Phenomena.
Anyway, it gave way to table tipping, automatic writing, materialization, and even levitation. In 1853, it was reported that Governor Talmadge was levitated while sitting on a table. The governor also claimed that he had received direct writing from the spirit of John C. Calhoun, whoever that is.
I have no idea who
I'm
that
sure
is.
he's important to New York somehow. Mediums, you're just looking at me like, really? Mediums started springing up all over the place. Not surprisingly, many of them were exposed as frauds. And, kind of like, and I think that's what pisses me off. And that's...
Can you hit pause?
What do you want to do?
I have to run to the restroom.
Oh. El Paso.
2 hours later.
Anyway. So, we were talking about, like, around that time, mediums started springing up all over the place. They were exposed as frauds. The phenomenon, God, such a hard time with that word.
Yeah. Trying to think of a replacement word you can use.
Yeah. Anyway, it was a sort that could be produced fraudulently, and therefore many charlatans tried to jump the bandwagon. Charlatans.
Damn.
Exposures became almost commonplace, and finally even reached out toward the Fox sisters themselves. They were accused of producing the raps by cracking their knee joints and toe joints.
Wow. I guess she had to go back to teaching music.
Yeah. In fact, an alleged confession was presented by a relative, Miss Norman Culver, who claimed that Catherine had told her that this was how, they had been doing it the whole time.
Lies.
In trying to explain how the raps could continue at an investigation where the committee held the ankles of the sisters, Miss Culver said that they had their servant rap on the floorboards from down in the cellar. So they were like, wait a minute, like...
I don't have a servant. Why don't I have a servant?
Right? They were like, wait a minute, so you're saying that they're cracking their toes, but like we were holding their feet and their ankles. Mm-hmm. We would have felt that. Mm-hmm. So she's like, oh, well then they had their servant knock on the floorboards, from the cellar. But there were several problems with that accusation. The investigations in question had been held in the homes of various members of the committee, plus in a public hall. And at the time, the Fox sisters didn't have a servant. So they were like, well, it wasn't even in their own home. We done, and I can understand why they would go to different homes like that too, just to kind of prove, like, they didn't have something set up. And then Mr.
Bean?
No.
Oh.
Capron, I don't know who he is, was able to show that at the time of the so-called confession, Kate Fox was actually residing at his home 70 miles away. So, like, and I mean, that may have been just like her jealous relative, like, mad that the girls were, the women.
Bitches be trifling.
Well, yeah, like you're getting all the pounds and I'm not. Were using pounds in the 18 whatever, or was it actual money? I don't know. I don't know what the monetary system was back in the 1800s, but
we know it was money.
Yeah, she wanted it. Unfortunately, the accusations did damage the reputation of the Fox sisters, and for a time they found themselves with few defenders other than Horace Greeley. And again, I don't know who he is, but he had their back. There was tremendous pressure put upon, turn the page, the sisters at this time, pressure to perform. Precautions for mediumship were unknown. In her autobiography, Miss Hardridge Britton...
You guys, every time she goes to read a name, her head just starts shaking no before she even attempts it.
I don't know it. She speaks of talking to Kate Fox at a spiritualist gathering, and this is what she had to say about meeting Kate. Poor patient Kate, in the midst of a copious grumbling crowd of investigators, repeating hour after hour the letters of the alphabet, while no less poor patient spirits rapped out names, ages, and dates to suit all comers. So this was another medium who was like, man, like this chick is like just for hours, like, answering questions, and then poor spirits on the other side, like, oh Jesus fucking Christ,
yeah,
your mother's maiden name was Smith, like, I don't know. Interestingly, although the method of producing the sounds was frequently questioned and many marvelous explanations were forthcoming, seldom did anyone question the incredible amount of information that was produced. So it's like they took the one thing that they might be able to, like, because there's no way that they can, like some guy from another state comes up and asks the medium a question, and the medium's like, oh yeah, that was your Uncle Bob.
Mm-hmm.
And like, there's no way she would know that he had an Uncle Bob. So instead of facing that, he was just like, you know what? I bet she was clicking her toes. Like, they're just completely ignoring the fact that, like, they knew this personal information you shouldn't have known.
Yeah.
Stupid.
I was, how I'm occasionally clairaudient?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I have never gotten names from a spirit before. And last night, while I was chatting with that person about whether or not spirits shit on the other side.
Oh, yeah.
All of a sudden, I kept hearing in my head, ask him if he knows Andy. And I was ignoring it, and it kept getting louder. Andy! Mention Andy! And I'm like,
Andy!
I'm like, Jesus Christ! So I asked him, I was like, hey, do you know an Andy? And he freaked. His best friend when he was a kid died.
Yeah.
And his name was Andy. And I said, well, this spirit is just showing me themselves just running around all over the place, saying, I can run whenever I want. He goes, oh my God. That was his favorite thing to do, was run around. So I thought that was really cool.
And then I immediately asked you, did he murder him?
I know.
It's like his friend Andy is dead. Like, did he murder him when they were children?
Yeah.
So anyway. From 1861 to 1866, Kate worked exclusively for the New York banker Charles F. Livermore, bringing him endless messages and information from his late wife, Estelle. How romantic is that? That, like, that's like, what, 5 years from 61 to 66? Like 5 years?
Yeah.
That he was like, I want you to tell me messages from my dead wife. I miss my dead wife. That's pretty fucking romantic.
I tell you what, if I die, my husband needs to just be horribly miserable and lonely.
Yeah.
You need to see to it.
I will.
That he suffers greatly without
I got
me.
you.
Okay.
I got you. During all that time, Estelle actually materialized and wrote notes in her own handwriting, all information that would have been unknown to Kate, but which Livermore was able to accept. In 1852, Margarita, married the famous Arctic explorer Dr. Elisha Kane. In November of
Was that a guy? What?
Yeah. Girl names, like my name Beverly used to be a boy's name.
But his name was Alicia?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. In November of 1858, Leah married her third husband, David Underhill, a wealthy insurance man. In 1871, Kate visited England, where the first spiritualist church had been established in Yorkshire in 1853. Her trip was financed by Livermore in gratitude for the years of when you console someone, consolation.
Yeah.
Consolation that she had brought him. I'm struggling. He wrote, Miss Fox, taken all in all, is no doubt the most wonderful living medium. Her character is irreproachable and pure. I have received so much through her powers of mediumship during the past 10 years, which is solacing, instructive, and astounding, that I am greatly indebted to her. Sound like you might have loved her a little bit.
I've run into that.
Yeah.
And these people have never met me.
Yeah. It's like addiction.
Addiction.
In England, Kate set for the well-known psychic investigator and physicist Professor William Crookes, among others. And actually, William Crookes, he invented the tube that makes the invention of X-rays possible.
Yeah.
At one of the seances, a London Times correspondent was present. In light of earlier accusations made against the Fox sisters, claiming that they made the rapping noises with their joints, it's interesting to read the Times correspondent's report. He said that he was taken to the door of the seance room and invited to stand by the medium and hold her hands. This he did, when loud thumps seemed to come from the panels as if done with a fist. These were repeated at our request any number of times. He went on to give every test he could think of, while Kate gave every opportunity for examination and had both of her feet and hands held securely. Of one seance, Crooks wrote, I was holding the medium's 2 hands in one of mine while her feet rested on my feet. Paper was on the table before us, and my disengaged hand was holding a pencil. A luminous hand came down from the upper part of the room, and after hovering near me for a few seconds, took the pencil from my hand, rapidly wrote on a sheet of paper, threw the pencil down, and then rose above our heads, gradually fading into darkness. So I'd like to know how she faked a fucking spirit hand coming down from the ceiling.
I'd like for a spirit hand to come down from my ceiling.
Listen to you. You like, and it's just the way you say it. Like, I'd like, In December 1872, Kate married H.D. Jacken, a London barrister?
Barrister?
Barrister? Whatever. And one of England's elderly spiritualists. They were to have 2 sons, both of whom were extremely psychic, before Jacken died in 1881. In 1876, Margarita traveled across the Atlantic to visit her sister.
Waiting on you to say something.
I know.
And you just look at me and shrug your shoulders like, I got nothing.
I have nothing to impart upon that. A quarrel developed between the 3 sisters, with Kate and Margarita eventually siding together against the older Leah. Hearing of a growing problem of alcoholism in her sisters, especially Margarita, Leah tried to have Kate separated from her 2 children. It has been suggested by such people as Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, who wrote Sherlock,
Yes.
that this may have prompted an attack by Margarita, who had been through some severe financial problems. And they kind of make a notation, too, that additionally Margarita had come under strong Roman Catholic influence, and that they were pressuring her to acknowledge that her gift was actually a gift from the devil.
Oh.
But, so Margarita was pissed off that, like, her sister was trying to take her kids and shit, or take Kate's kids anyway. So she swore to avenge herself and her sister against Leah. Thinking to hurt Leah by harming the entire spiritualist movement, Margarita wrote a letter to the New York Herald in which she denounced the movement and promised a full exposure of it. This she tried to do before a panel in August 1888. The following month, Kate came over from England to join her. Although Kate didn't promise an expose, she did seem to back her sister in the fight against Leah. In the Hall of Music on October 21st, 1888, Margarita made her, her claims that it all had been faked. She even managed to produce some minor raps to back up what she was saying. Kate kept silent, though by doing so she seemed to endorse her sister's statements. So while Kate never come out and said, "Oh yeah, it was all fake," she didn't say anything to dispute it either. So it seemed like that both sisters were saying that it was all fake and they were trying to hurt Leah. Suddenly on November 17th, less than a month later, suddenly, Kate wrote a letter kind of explaining what happened. Now remember, Kate's the one that, didn't really speak up when Margarita was trashing Leah.
Right.
Okay. She said, I would have written to you before this, but my surprise was so great on my arrival to hear of Maggie's exposure of spiritualism that I had no heart to write anyone. The manager of the affair...
What?
They talked so weird back then. The manager of the affair engaged the Academy of Music the very largest place of entertainment in New York City. It was filled to overflowing. They made $1,500 clear. I think now I could make money in proving that the knockings are not made with the toes. So many people come to me and ask about this exposure of Maggie's that I have to deny myself to them. They are hard at work to expose the whole thing if they can, but they cannot, certainly. So basically what she was saying is like that the move, like Margarita going and saying like it's all fake, was to make money. That her public declaration of it happened in the biggest entertainment place that they had to offer.
Yeah.
And that they ended up making $1,500.
Yeah.
So she's like, I might as well go out and say that it is true and make money.
Yeah.
You know, so that's what she was saying. And I think she was saying that she was so overwhelmed by the number of people and how much money was offered for the people to come and to listen to what she was saying that she didn't say anything otherwise.
Yeah.
Is basically what she said. On November 20th, 1889, about a year after the expose, Margarita gave an interview to the New York Press. So here we're going to have here's Margarita's statement. Would to God that I could undo. What?
You did this dramatic pause.
I did. Would to God that I could undo the injustice I did cause the spiritualism when under the strong psychological influence of persons I give expression to utterances that have no foundation in fact. This retraction and denial has not come about so much from my own sense of what is right as from the silent impulse of the spirits using my organism at an expense of the hostly fucking my life. Using my organism at the expense of the hostility of the treacherous horde who held out promises of wealth and happiness in return for an attack on spiritualism and whose hopeful assurances were deceitful.
What?
So basically what she said, okay, it's so funny because I finished reading.
Nobody's using my organism.
Right? My organism hasn't been used in a long time.
My esoteric organism.
Yeah, my esoteric. Anyway.
Sorry.
Basically what she's saying is that she was promised certain things to say that it was all fake.
Right.
And she was not given those things.
Oh.
And then on top of that, the spirits were upset that she had harmed the spiritualist movement.
Yeah.
And they were hounding her. So now she had to set the record straight. So basically she's like, I was promised riches and I didn't get riches. So now I want to go back and say it's real so that maybe I could start making money doing that again. So
nice try.
She was asked plainly, was there any truth in the charges you made against spiritualism? To which she replied, those charges were false in every particular.
Excuse me.
Those charges were false in every particular. I have no hesitation in saying that. When I made those dreadful statements, I was not responsible for my words. Its genuineness is an whatever. It's a fact. I don't know why I have such trouble, because I don't have this much trouble when I'm talking normal.
No, it's just on the podcast.
But I mean, like, I think it's like maybe something between like reading.
Your page is so fucked up and bent.
Is that better?
Yes.
My titty made it.
Your boob was eating the page.
Anyway, but there's something. I'm sure if we looked it up, we could find out that it's a disorder or something. That like between my brain reading the word and it coming out my mouth, it just doesn't happen. Because I don't have this much problems talking like normal.
No.
And I said that completely fucked up, didn't I?
You did. I've got you noticing it now.
Okay. Let's carry on. Asked... What's it saying? Do you want to get made fun of? Because this is how you get made fun of. Thanks. And it's funny is it just kind of like you scrolled and found that right as
I know.
it's like the universe. It was like, hey, here's something to just embarrass me a little bit more. Anyway. Asked what her sister Catherine thought of her present course, she said, "She is in complete sympathy with me. She did not approve my course in the past." So basically she's like, yeah, Catherine really didn't have much of a choice in what I was saying and doing. The 3 Fox sisters died within a year or two of each other. Leah in 1890, Catherine in 1892, and Margarita in 1893. The final word on them comes from a woman doctor, not a spiritualist, who attended Margarita on her death. At a meeting of the Medical Legal Society of New York in 1905, Dr. Mellon stated that Margarita was lying on a bed in a tenement house on 9th Street. According to the doctor, she was unable at the time to move a hand or foot, yet knockings came from the wall, the floor, and from the ceiling in answer to Margarita's faint questions. She was as incapable of cracking her toe joints at the time as I was, said the doctor. So at the time, and Margarita was the last one to die.
Mm-hmm.
And as she's dying, she's whispering and there's knockings answering her.
But people felt bad then.
So it's pretty fucked up. So, that was all happening in America. So while that was happening in America, there was an independent work, progressing in France. Okay. A simple untrained mechanic named oh, fuck my life. It's a French name. Oh, fuck. Cahagnet.
Cahagnet.
Cahagnet. Cahagnet.
That's what I was gonna say.
Cahagnet. Which is wrong, because they have that whole guttural, thing that they do.
Yeah.
But he was not particularly well read or well educated. And he became interested in mesmerism, which was the precursor to hypnotism.
Mesmerism.
That
sounds kind of cool.
Finding that he had a skill as a mesmerist, he worked with various subjects and was able to bring about cures for various disorders and diseases. He decided to devote his life to this work, but became somewhat nonplussed when some of his subjects, instead of simply following his directions while in trance, started to wander off into space to what they described as the land of spirits. They described people whom they emphatically declared to be the souls of those who had previously lived on Earth. He tried hard to get these subjects to return to his direction, but they continued with what he termed wild hallucinations. People came to witness what was taking place, and from among them, some recognized some of the spirits as dead relatives. So began a long series of experiments by this guy, the results of which he finally presented in a book titled The Celestial Telegraph, or Secrets of the Life to Come. An English translation of this book was made in 1848, the year of the Fox sisters phenomenon. It might also be worth mentioning that Joseph Glanville, who has been called the father of psychic research, conducted seances at Ragley Castle in England with Dr. Francis Van Helmont, Dr. These
names are just use first names.
I just keep going. Dr. Henley Moore and Robert Boyle. At these sittings, mediums demonstrated the art of communicating with the world of spirits. At that time, it would have been classed as a branch of necromancy. So basically, it was talking about this guy in France. He was like, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I can do it. So he was putting people in trances and shit, and all these wild spirits were coming in, and he's like, no, let's stay on task. And they're like, fuck you! So yeah, he probably should not have been doing that.
Mm-mm.
He probably, should not have been doing it. So now we're going to talk.
That reminds me of me, because I'll be telling you how spirits only show up to talk to me at the most inconvenient times possible.
Yeah.
And I'm always like, leave me alone! phone.
Yeah. And what's funny, because, like, I don't, like, every now and then I'll see something or sense something, but, like, nothing compared to what you experience. Like, I haven't even seen my dad, but you've seen my dad.
He trapped me in my bedroom.
Yeah, he's like, tell my daughter to calm
He's like, call her
down.
on the phone.
Yeah. Tell her to calm her tits. So,
and I described him too.
yeah, well, because you described him, what he looked like when he was a young man.
And from my personal experience, people, once they pass over to the other side, tend to take on the form of how they looked, like 30-ish.
Yep.
So the only time they usually appear as old is so that you can describe them to the person you're giving the message to.
Yeah.
So that they can know who it is.
Yeah, because they may not know what Grandpa looked like when he was 30.
Right. But that's the age that, from my experience, they tend to stick with on the other side.
Yeah.
I looked good at 30.
You're like, I looked good at 30. So, we're going to talk about, like, someone that's kind of notable that was really into this stuff.
Me?
No. You're not notable. Like, what the fuck? No. Abraham Lincoln. He attended many seances, even having some at his own home. He was as much a spiritualist as anything else. He was not any particular Christian faith, although he certainly did seem to believe in an infinite intelligence. In the days before the Civil War, only 25 to 35% of the population actually belonged to a Christian denomination. That's some fucking messed up knowledge right there, isn't it?
Yeah.
The vast majority did not belong to any church, though most seem to have believed in an afterlife. Spiritualism competed with Christianity, and in the later part of the 19th century became the fastest growing religion in America. The Lincolns had lost 3 of their 4 sons to childhood diseases, so it was natural that Mary Todd Lincoln, the president's wife...
Vampires killed one of them.
Yeah. Mary Todd Lincoln, the president's wife...
You're trying to ignore me now.
I am. Would want to attend seances. Seances! Colonel Simon Case told of one notable seance, which both he and the president attended in the home of Miss Laurie. The Laurie's daughter, Miss Miller, was the medium, and she played the piano while in a trance. As she played, 2 legs of the instrument levitated several inches off the floor, then repeatedly banged back to the floor to beat in time with the music. As it kept,
That's kind of creepy.
Yeah. As it kept rising up, Case, a judge, and 2 soldiers who were present all climbed onto the piano together, but they were not able to make it settle down again until the medium stopped playing. It was reported that the legs rose as high as 4 inches off the floor. So it was raising 4 inches off the floor with, like, 3 full fucking grown men.
That's really cool.
Like, sitting on it. Abraham Lincoln held many, he had many, how do you say that? Like, prophetic dreams, including one of his prophylactic, yeah, dreams, including one of his own death. In early April 1865, he dreamed he was laying in bed when he heard the sound of sobbing. Getting up and leaving his bedroom, he went into the East Room of the White House, where he saw a line of people filing past, what the fuck is that word? CATAFALQUE?
What?
CATA. FA.
Hang on. CATAFA.
QUE.
A decorated wooden framework supporting the coffin of a distinguished person during a funeral or while lying in state.
We don't have that anymore.
No.
That's why I don't know the word. I don't feel bad. They were all paying their respects to the figure laying in, in that whatever the fuck it is, guarded by 4 soldiers. The face of the figure was covered. So in the dream, Lincoln asked one of the soldiers who had died. The soldier replied, "The president. He was killed by an assassin." Later, Lincoln told his wife Mary and several friends about the dream. It was later that same month that he was shot and killed by John Wilkes Booth. Another of Lincoln's dreams was of a damaged ship sailing away with a Union ship in hot pursuit. Lincoln had this dream on a number of occasions, each time just before an important Union victory.
Huh.
At one seance the Lincolns attended, a teenage girl approached the president. It was Nettie Colburn Maynard, a young medium. Entranced, she began to lecture Lincoln on the necessity for emancipation. She spoke to him for almost an hour, stating that the Civil War could not come to an end until all men were free. When Nettie came out of her trance and saw to whom she had been speaking, she ran from the room in fright and embarrassment. But 2 days later, when Lincoln and his wife were at another seance, Nettie appeared again and did the same thing, lecturing the president about freeing the slaves. Case reported that President Lincoln was convinced as to the course he should pursue, the command coming from that all-seeing spirit through the instrumentality of the angel world was not to be overlooked. Thus, the prediction of the medium was verified.
Huh.
In 1854, 10 years before the end of the Civil War, 15,000 Americans had petitioned Congress for a scientific study of spiritualism. But the request was denied. The tremendous death toll of the war led to even more of an interest in, if not a need for, spiritualism. So, and actually, I think we're going to have to make this one a part. Like, we're going to have to make this a 2-part series.
Yeah.
Because that was just the first half of the history of spiritualism. And we are over an hour. So, we'll close that up and we'll do a second part.
Okay.
You can find us on the internet at featherandbone.net. There you have access to our lessons, our shop, links to the website, the podcast, the Facebook group. Dawn sells Avon. There's also a link to her Keen page on there. If you want to get a reading from her on Keen, you can do that. So lots of cool, interesting information. I need to update it with some current events that are happening. I'll try to remember to do that.
Oh, we're going to be at the Heyman House next month.
September 28th, I believe. I mean, don't quote me on that, but I believe it's the 28th.
Yeah.
And then of course this will air before the event in St. Albans, the Crystal Woods Pagan Society.
Oh, I'm looking at you like, what event?
We're having a sip and brew at the Crystal Lotus Shop. You can find information to that on the internet as well, like on Facebook.
I don't know what a sip and brew is.
I'm not sure either. This one was Asen's idea. I'm assuming that it's just sitting down with like coffee, drinks, and stuff, and just talking, just socializing. Because the Crystal Woods Pagan Society, it was co-founded by myself and Asen, and basically we wanted to have something in the community that wasn't like strictly revolving around like rituals and stuff like that. We wanted some type of event, at least once a month that pagans could come together and just be together. And it's not like anyone's pressured to do a ritual, believe in, we don't have to believe in each other's beliefs. Like, let's just sit down and talk as people that have this common thing of paganism. We're planning on doing some game nights where we're going to play like Cards Against Humanity, stuff like that. So there's that kind of stuff, like just gatherings so we can build community. So
yeah.
Well, I gotta say, if anyone's planning on going to a game night where there's Cards Against Humanity, if you're an overly sensitive crybaby fucktard, do not go.
Yeah,
because you will get your feelings hurt
a lot.
You have to have a sense of humor to play that game.
Yeah, like you can't be offended by anything.
No.
Like and it's not, because I've seen where people will like pull certain cards out of the deck before they start playing.
Yeah.
That you're cheating yourself out of an experience if you do that.
It's funny.
Yeah.
That game is so funny.
You can make a joke during that game about, someone's sexuality. It doesn't mean that like you have anything against that.
No. No.
Like, so you can't, you can't go in there and get your feelings hurt if someone plays a card that steps on your feelings. Like, I mean,
Exactly.
you can't. But anyway, we'll close up here, and then we will do the second part of this.
Okay.
So remember, it's magic, motherfuckers. You didn't say motherfuckers.
Motherfucker.
Motherfucker.